Head of Policy. Well, good evening, everyone. And how do I follow such a great speech like that? We're incredibly fortunate to have Patrick as our Director of Communications, and as I'm on the same list, it's fortunate to have him as #1 because he brings incredible experience, and the way we can articulate our message in a positive way means that we are very much new UKIP. But I want to tell you 3 things. I want to talk obviously about the European Union, and then I want to talk about our government, and then I want to talk about the next 2 years. So 3 short points about the European Union. The first is, they don't understand that no means no. Cast your minds back to when we had the European Constitution. Now, you can fit the American Constitution in your jacket pocket. You couldn't fit the European Constitution in your briefcase. So many countries were given their chance to vote on this, and Netherlands and France said no. So they took the European Constitution, spent months talking about it, repackaged it, and said, there you go. Many of the countries who were given a say on the European Constitution weren't given one on the Lisbon Treaty. So that's the first thing. They don't understand that no means no. The second is more of an anecdote of how the European Union works. Has anyone been to the European Parliament? Grisly place, isn't it? Which one though? Because the European Union loves parliaments. They've got 3 of them.
All 3.
You've been to all 3? I think that deserves a round. So they only use 2 of them. Where they actually go and vote is in Strasbourg, where it actually counts, and it's the plenary. And there are 2 videos on YouTube I want you to watch, because it sums up the direction again that the European Union is going in. The first is a video of your London MEP, Gerard Batten, and there's 2 ways they vote in the Strasbourg Parliament. The first is by the buttons on the desk, which is recorded votes. But the European Union doesn't have all recorded votes because they say it costs too much. And this is a European Union that hasn't had its accounts properly signed off for near on 20 years. The second way they vote is a show of hands, which are not recorded. And that's how the majority of votes go through in the European Parliament. So our UKIP MEPs voting away, and the President, because they love presidents of the European Union, I think at the last count they've got 4. But the President of the Parliament is the Speaker, and he's there reading out voting lists. And he's doing something very odd. It must, telepathy must be contagious in the European Union. Because he's looking at the piece of paper in front of him, and he's reading out the vote number. So vote number 0001, 4 against, abstain, carried. Vote 0002, 4 against, abstain, carried. Vote for, he's going all like this. He's not even looking up, and the arms are flying all over the place and so on. And Gerald gets up and says, what are you doing? You're not even looking to count the votes. You're saying 4 against, abstain, carried. 4 against, abstain, carried. You're not even looking at it. The other video, again, is in Strasbourg, and again is in the voting procedure. And you've got your voting list in front of them, and Derek Clark, the MEP for the East Midlands, is saying, and hands again flying everywhere, he's saying, hang on, these aren't being read out in order. So he makes his point of order, and if you want to make a point of order, you have to do that. Don't ask me why, you just have to. And he's saying, well, hang on, you're reading all of these out in a different order. We don't even know what we're voting on. And I think she was Belgian, she's got the earpiece in, and she just looks up and says, well, that's how we do things here. That's how we do things here. Third and final point about the European Union. I was at a debate on free movement. Fundamental right of free movement in the European Union. And I made the point, as Patrick did, that we want an immigration system like Australia and New Zealand, where you pay into the pot before you take out of it. If you've got a skill, you can come, but they're in control of their borders. And the representative from the Commission said, Mr. Aker, you just don't understand, do you? Those immigration systems work perfectly well for those countries because, you see, they're both islands. Now we laugh, chuckle and so on. But what you see there is an absolute determination, regardless of how absurd the European Union looks. There is a determination there to push on for ever closer union at whatever price. At whatever price. And that's given our government the opportunity to abandon its responsibilities to us.
That's right.
Because I think it's a national outrage, an outrage that we have 1 million young people unemployed in this country. And every time, boy George Osborne says there's recovery. How can he say that when 1 million young people are unemployed? How can he say that when the Prince's Trust research found that 750,000 young people have mental health problems associated with their long-term unemployment? It gets even worse because the European Union, with the support and even sympathy of our government, are taking British jobs and advertising them across the whole European Union. Who's heard of the European Job Mobility Portal? 2. The European Job Mobility Portal advertises the whole of the jobs available across the European Union to all the European Union member states. So bear in mind, the pro-Europeans say, well, it's a wonderful organisation. We can go live and work in there and they can come and live and work over here. Well, this portal absolutely debunks all of that. As you see, on the 1st of January, we looked at the European Union Job Mobility Portal, and out of the 1.9 million jobs available across the whole European Union, guess how many of those were based in the United Kingdom? 1.3 million. And on that same day when we opened up our labour markets to Bulgaria and Romania, guess how many were advertised in Bulgaria? 4. 4. We're advertising near on 70% of the jobs across the whole European Union. And we have 1 million young people unemployed. Why are the government not resting to make sure that young people are in jobs before deciding to advertise all of these jobs across the whole European Union, which Patrick said leads to the wage compression? If people are willing to come and work for £6.31 an hour, you're not going to advertise the job for £10 an hour, are you? You're going to keep doing it like that. And the companies can afford to do that, because if they're here on a minimum wage job, with a spouse, with 2 children, within no time at all they're available for tax credits, housing benefit and child benefits. Absolutely right. But I said I was going to talk about our government, because I don't blame people for coming over here to get a better life. If I was in their position, I would do exactly the same. They want what's best for themselves and their families, which is why many of them work incredibly hard. But the problem is, our government are meant to be public servants, not the masters. And what are they doing? Using this institution of the European Union as cover to bring in all of the jobs at the expense of our young unemployed. But it's not just jobs, it's also energy, because we're part of the European Union's renewables packages and so on. And they say it's for the climate, and they say it's for the environment and so on. But look at when you look at the actual policies that they are implementing, I'll tell you what. In 2015, we will shut the power stations that provide us with 1/3 of our energy. Tilbury Power Station in my constituency of Thurrock, gone. 800 jobs that we'll never get back. 800 skilled jobs we will never get back. How many windmills will it take to keep the lights on when when power stations that provide us a third of our energy are shut down? And finally, there's money. Recovery, growth. The national debt is going to soar to 1.4 trillion at the end of this Parliament. This coalition was set up to get rid of the budget deficit. But yet, this year we're borrowing 108 billion. Next year we'll be borrowing 95 billion. Now let's put that into perspective, because I believe this government has made moral choices. They've made a moral choice to be part of the European Union, where British jobs and British workers are not treated first. They've made a moral choice to shut our power stations down and sign up to European Union energy schemes. So they're making a moral choice, because next year, when our budget deficit is 95 billion, our European contributions and foreign aid will come to more than a third of that. More than a third, with just those two items of public spending. Those are the moral choices the Conservatives, Labour and the Liberal Democrats are all signed up to. They believe in it. They've benefited from it. But when you explain the consequences of their policies, can the people have benefited from it? On jobs, on energy, on public finances? Can a country that can't control its borders, that can't get its workforce into jobs, and that can't keep the lights on, can that be called an independent country? No. Can those people who oversee those policies be called a government? No. The right word for them is a shambles. Absolute shambles, which is why we have such an opportunity to put into practice the positive policies Patrick was talking about. Because what we do on May the 22nd doesn't stop on May the 23rd. We have got the chance, bearing in mind we have no members of Parliament, we have the chance to become the largest delegation to the European Parliament to win a national election. And on the back of that, we've got the chance to get many hundreds of district, unitary and London councillors at the same time. And in some ways, the local elections are more important than the European elections, because that builds your foundation to then get members of Parliament into Westminster in 2015. And we'll hear all the rubbish from the Conservatives. Vote UKIP, get Miliband, they'll say. But we've done our work on this. A very, very generous supporter of ours, Alan Bound, commissioned the polling company Survation to look into the makeup of the UKIP vote. And when you dig down, you see that it's not a case of vote UKIP, get Miliband, it's a case of vote UKIP, get UKIP. We looked at individual constituencies the Conservatives need to hold just to tread water. Thanet South, Great Yarmouth, two constituencies where, when polled and asked, would you vote Conservative, Labour, Liberal Democrat, don't laugh, or UKIP? The results? Well, the results were quite interesting, because in those constituencies, it wasn't vote UKIP get Miliband, it was vote Cameron get Miliband, because the Tories were third. And the makeup of the UKIP vote found that between 70 and 80% of UKIP voters would never vote Conservative. So how can the Tories then go and say, vote UKIP get Miliband? Desperate. They're desperate, aren't they? They can't defend the moral choices they've made in government. So now they're resorting to attacks and smears and dirty tricks. I'll tell you what, it's not even washing with them, because the biggest chunk of our vote, and the vote we can be proudest of, comes from people who haven't voted for 15 to 20 years. And that's the known unknown of the next two elections. The more people we can get out to vote, the more doors you knock on, the more people you talk to, gets that former non-voter block bigger and bigger and bigger for us. So that when the elections come, we can come top, we can win constituencies, but then we can say in 2015, vote UKIP and get UKIP. Because what we do on May the 22nd, when we cause that political earthquake, it'll be felt and the tremors will continue on to Westminster. We've been running the show, running the agenda without a single MP. Just imagine what we can do with a few MPs. We only have one country, so we've got to fight for it.
Absolutely.
They have dropped our flag, so pick it up.
Yes.
And on May 22nd, join us, team with us, fight with us, because it's up to us to start that campaign to get our country back. Thank you.